Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to Inside Sports Talk with your host, Johanna-Rosalye. And today I am joined by a wonderful friend, mentor, one of the best out there in sports radio, my great friend, Ed Smith. Hi, Ed. Thank you for joining me. How are you? And how's your beautiful Wednesday going along?
Joanna, always a pleasure to be with you. The Wednesday is going great. I'm already looking forward to the weekend, though. So let's get there.
Yeah, it's hump day, so we're just trying need to get over that hump and
That,
it'll be smooth sailing from there, right?
that's it. That's it.
And talking about smooth sailing, I want to go ahead and we're going to talk NBA and we'll talk playoffs, and then we'll talk a little bit about the NFL and the draft that's coming up here in just a little bit over a week. Talk a little bit of baseball and touch on maybe some NHL if we have some extra time. So I want to go ahead and just going to dive right in. We have of course, the NBA playoffs that have been just a show this go around. I want to get your take before we go into and drill down on them, like how you see these NBA playoffs. What's your the impact out of this go around?
Well, Joanne, this is my favorite time of the year as far as NBA basketball. I don't, I always joke about it. And I even said it on our show the other day. The 82 game preseason is finally over. And now we can get to the good stuff. Long season. Some people think it should be shortened, be one of them. But when we get to the playoffs, this is the most exciting time of the year for me as far as the NBA basketball. I love the way the intensity picks up for every single game. It stops becoming just a 3-point contest, during the regular season. We actually see teams playing defense, rebounding, pushing the ball. It's more of a half court game that is just a sprint up and down. And like I said, throw 3-pointers up. So, and you also get the 7-game series, and not every one of them is going to go 7 games, but it's, we see the intensity of them and every game matters. It's not like, well, we're playing in Buffalo or in Milwaukee this week. Then we go over to Philly tomorrow. This is actually 7 games. Like I said, we see the intensity of them and some really good series to start off here, including ours. We'll talk about that one. We obviously have an injury update, but you look at the Celtics Nets series as one that's going to be, a little knockdown drag out, along with a couple others. Minnesota and Minnesota and Memphis. That's going to be another one. So I love this time of year, and it's like I said, it's time to get after it. And we've already seen some excitement within these first round games.
Yeah, and it's just so much excitement. I'm going to go ahead and just go into one of the most exciting games that I saw on, this is game 1 we're talking about, and just talk about that Boston and Celtics and Brooklyn Nets game, Ed. That was just a roller coaster of emotions, and it exceeded my expectations. I knew it was going to be a great game, a great duel between these two teams because they just both have spectacular, players. You have KD, we have Marcus Smart, which we'll get into a little bit, down this segment and talking NBA. But just that, and then just having that last second buzzer beater for the Celtics to win that game, Ed.
Well, first off, you look at this. This should not be a first round series. You're talking about the Nets falling to the 7th seed, actually having to go through the play in just to get in to that 7th seed, and then match up against the Celtics, who are 2. But in normal situations, with Kyrie missing a whole bunch of games because of his vaccination or lack of vaccination, and then you got some injury to Kevin Durant, and like I said, they fall to a 7. This is actually this should be a second or even a conference championship series with all the talent we have on this between these two teams. But it's a first round series, and as you mentioned, what a matchup. And then you throw in the vitriol with the hatred of Kyrie going back to Boston after the way he left them a few years ago. And we all know about the 2-finger salute he gave everybody multiple times. So, they're razzing him. The fact that, on the road, the Nets had that game, a 3-point lead with 43 seconds left, couldn't hold the Celtics off, and then that last second finish, I'm watching it, and I even got excited. You had to check to make sure that Tatum even got the ball off, but he did. And what a way to steal. And I say steal one at home against the Nets. I think this might end up going 7. We'll see. Game 2 tonight. I'm expecting it to be just as exciting as game 1. But yeah, what a first taste of what this series could give us. And I expect nothing but more of this moving forward.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I don't think that this should be a first series, games, going off against these two teams going off against each other. And then also this is a test. In a way, you can see it as for not only the Nets but also Steve Nash. And we've touched on it a little bit on the last show, but we know that the challenges that the Nets faced and how there was a lot of questions and not only with the team, the players, but also with the coaching and maybe even front office. So and then being able for them to overcome those and be able to go ahead and get a first round playoff match again and have it be Boston. So this is going to be a tremendous challenge for the Nets and Steve Nash and how it can dictate the next season for this organization.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point. There are so many questions about what, first off, was Nash even qualified for this job? He never had coaching experience, and he gets this opportunity, and you're kind of watching to see what strategic moves, and I've been listening since that game 1, and a lot of people are questioning what adjustments did he make or what will he do moving forward? And that's a huge question. When you have the talent that they have, sometimes, you lose sight of, there's a dude on the sideline is actually supposed to be directing this, symphony going on out there. And maybe, we'll find out whether he's actually really qualified for this position. Another, I guess, I don't know if you want to call it distraction, Joanna, something we haven't even talked about is the whole Ben Simmons thing. Will he play? Won't he play? If he does, what's he going to do? How much can he give the Nets? That's been an ongoing saga from the day that they made that trade with the Sixers. And it'll be interesting. They're saying he might, meaning Simmons might come out or be ready for game 4 or something like that. How do you throw a player, especially after his ending in Philly last year with the playoffs? He hasn't played a game since June of last year. How do you throw a dude into playoff basketball in this situation? What can you even expect from him? And somebody made a comment, I can't take credit for it. It was like jumping on a moving treadmill. And I'm talking about a treadmill going at 3 or 4. This one's going at 10 or 11, because this is playoff basketball. This isn't preseason or regular season. This is playoff basketball. So it's going to be really interesting to see, like you said, what is Nash going to do adjustment-wise, and if they do decide to throw Simmons into the fire, how that all works out as well.
Yeah, so you brought up a great point we didn't touch on is Simmons, and there's some news that came out earlier today that he's taken just practice and kind of like getting his body moving and be somewhat prepared to come into a game. But regardless of how much you prepare, it's not the same as having that activity and being out there on the court. And like you mentioned, Ed, going into a playoff scenario, that's from injury to rehab to playoff action. It's just something I don't see as a reality that even if he gets in there, not going to be a starter, and you're going to have very, very limited time on the court.
And I'll just give you a quick insight. You get that Inside Sports. I'll just give you a quick insight to the difference between regular season and playoffs, and even in all types of sports. Obviously, I played professional sports, baseball and football. My take on when I was playing in the NFL, Joanna, there was preseason speed, then there was regular season speed. And when I was in the NFL, playing against the best of the best of the best, and I was like, oh my God, this is so much different than preseason. Obviously, I went through a whole season. Then my first taste of playoff football, I didn't think you could move any faster or it became more intense, and it absolutely does. And I think that's at every level in every sport. You can tell the difference of intensity and importance and what it means to all the players that care out there. It becomes a totally different speed and beast. And I tell you, and every level you move up as well. Like when I was in the NFL, we had the divisional round. We had a bye one year, played in the divisional, then you played in the NFC Championship. Then in my case, I got to a Super Bowl. Oh my goodness, I don't think there's another speed that could ever be gotten to. But like I said, it definitely picks up when you get to that level and then into those different rounds. And you can see it, like I said, with the intensity of these guys going at it on the court here in the NBA playoffs, just in the first round.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Like I know I feel it just as covering the sport. Like, and even watching when you watch it as a fan and being and covering it as media, you just feel that intensity and your adrenaline just goes. I can imagine how much more it is for the athletes. So no, thank you for sharing that. And that is very good insight, like you said, because no one just in a day-to-day average person doesn't really always take that into consideration or really realize the intensity that it is.
Absolutely.
But continuing on that intensity, let's go ahead and we'll do a quick rundown here of what we have in the action for the playoffs. And we have Miami and Atlanta. Miami's leading 2-0 on that series, and so that's pretty much as expected. The Hawks have a really good team. They have Trae Young, but I don't think it's a match for what the Heat have in that heat that they're bringing to the Hawks.
Yeah, they're just overmatched. They're an 8 seed who got in through the play-in, might be a little tired as well, having to go through the play-in, get to this situation. But Butler just took over that game yesterday. I anticipate this one, is going back to Atlanta. Obviously, they could grab a game maybe, but they're overmatched. I think the Heat wins this one in 4 or 5.
And then we have the Philadelphia 76ers and the Toronto Raptors, the Sixers capitalizing on that series also 2-0. And then we have, a newcomer to the Sixers and kind of seeing how that's playing out, and especially in that playoff contention, we have James Harden. So I want to get your take on that and what you've seen and you've observed on that end.
Well, there's so much criticism after the trade. Initially Harden was doing this thing and then he went into a little bit of a slump toward the end of the regular season. And once again, people are, well, is Harden a postseason guy? We've seen his record kind of over the last bunch of years. He does all this stuff during the regular season, doesn't produce quite as well in the postseason. But what I'm seeing right now is maybe he's awoken. You got Embiid who's playing at the top of his game. This is a series where Toronto, with all their injuries and things going on, once again, they're overmatched right now. This first round series is not going to give us, I would say, a true picture of what the Sixers are capable of doing. The next series, if everything plays out, it looks like the Heat and the Sixers are on a collision course for round 2. I think that's when the real test comes, and that's going to be, it's like James Harden, over the page, James Harden report to the front of the building because it's going to be time for him to put up or show up. This series right here, as long as they do what they do, they're not even going to need much from him, but round 2 is coming, and that's when we're going to have to see the real James Harden either step up or continue to be criticized for his postseason shortcomings, if you want.
Yes, and I agree that that's going to be the biggest test for James Harden, is going on to the next round, and as the players intensify, whether what type of player, or if he's that caliber, has that caliber aspect as you would expect going into the playoffs in the NBA. But then we also have Milwaukee Bucks, the defending NBA final champs, against the Chicago Bulls. Milwaukee's leading 1-0, and game 2 is tonight.
Yeah, this one, I think the Bulls are, they kind of stumbled down the stretch. I know a lot of people during the regular season, they were really surprising them. At one point they had the number 1 seed, and then come to find out, I think they were more of a pretender than a contender. They lost a lot of games against the top seeds during the regular season, and a lot of that is youth and some injury and different things like that. But when you got Giannis and those boys out there doing what they're doing, this is another series that I think game 2 will go to the Bucks tonight, and they'll dust this one off pretty quickly and look forward to whoever comes out of that Nets-Celtics series. I think round 2, boy, we got some really good matchups potentially. And like I said, this series, I'm going to keep my eye on it, but I think Bucks will roll through this one.
Yeah, that's just keeps getting more intense as we go along here. And going on over here to the west, on the western side, we have Minnesota Timberwolves number 7 against Memphis Grizzlies the number 2. The series is tied, Ed. So these are really two really great teams. And both of these, I believe, kind of in a way came, under the radar, or at least they didn't have that much of a spotlight. Yes, granted, they're a little bit smaller markets, but you should not count them out. You should keep an eye on these. In my opinion, either whichever one of these two teams win, they have great potential to go for deep into the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think this is a matchup of what we call two up and comers. And I think the Grizzlies got a little overshadowed because of what the Suns did in this Western Conference this year. We forget they were 2 seed, and nobody saw that coming. Everybody thought early in the year Golden State and the Suns would battle it out, and the rest of the conference would kind of be just kind of in the wings there. And we saw the Grizzlies, just kind of put their stamp on things. What was impressive, though, was from the Timberwolves side of things. They got to the 7th seed, and boom, they took game 1 to surprise us. So they now have home court in this now best-of-5 series, and it's heading back to Minnesota. We saw what Memphis did last night, but now they have to go on the road and at least get one of those games. Otherwise, they could be in some trouble. But I love this series. This is, and then you got Patrick Beverley out there stirring the pot. And so this is, like I said, two young and upcoming teams that are really, regardless of what they do in this series, meaning even whoever loses, we should look to these two teams as the future coming up in this Western Conference.
And then the good keeps getting better, Ed. We have Denver Nuggets and the Golden State Warriors. Golden State is leading actually this series 2-0. It's really not unexpected for Golden State to lead the series, but then Denver can still contend in the series, because we've seen what they're capable of, not only this season but also during the last playoffs. Do you think still that Denver can put up a fight against Golden State, or that the series is over?
They can put up a fight. They're obviously going back home, but what I saw from the Warriors the other day in game 2, oh my goodness, they look like somebody lit a fire under them, and that spells trouble for the Western Conference, because a lot of people were counting them out. Draymond Green was hurt during the season. Steph got hurt at the end of the season. Who was it that was coming back? The third of the Splash Brothers. They look like they were just kind of going through the motions during the regular season. Now, oh my goodness, they look really good. And they could be a handful moving forward. As far as the Nuggets, you take away Djokovic, and I know, he's possibly going for his second MVP here, but without all the pieces on that team, it's almost like a one-man against a five-man game here. And I just don't think they have enough firepower to keep up with the Warriors. So this one could go on maybe an extra game or so, meaning it could go 5 or 6. But if the Warriors continue to do what they did like the other night, this could be a short series.
And then we have Dallas Mavericks, and and going against Utah Jazz. That series is tied. We have Luka that was out for game 2. I haven't heard of an update right now on game 3, how that's going to be affecting Dallas, but still a pretty good matchup between these two teams. And the winner of this series would face the winner between the Phoenix Suns and New Orleans Pelicans, which we'll go ahead and get that over there in a second. But what's your take on the Dallas and Utah?
I was really surprised the Mavericks. I know they're at home and they're the higher seed, but to win the other night without Luka really impressed me. And they could, we'll have to wait to see what the update is on when Luka comes back. Those he has a calf strain, and just like hamstrings, I know we'll talk about hamstrings here in a minute. Those are so tricky, because just when you think it's healthy, as an athlete, we want to give it a go, and the slightest tweak and you're right back to square one with those things. So it'll be interesting to see how long they keep Luka out of the lineup. Obviously, the series goes back to Utah now. If you're Dallas, you lost home court with that game 1 loss. Now your job is to get at least one of those over there in Utah. It's going to be a tough battle, like I said, but they can do it. We saw, I think his name was Brunson, kind of light the fire over there in Dallas. If they can get another effort from him like that and they steal one, this could be a long series as well.
And then talking about a long series, getting into the Phoenix Suns and New Orleans Pelicans, they played game 2 last night. That series is tied. Game 1, Phoenix Suns, they were dominant. They defeated the Pelicans and Willie Green. But come game 2, following game 1, Willie Green said that the Phoenix Suns were just so physical, and that on game 2, they were going to go ahead and come out. They were going to go ahead and match them. They were going to go ahead and try to get them out of bounds. Like, Willie Green had a plan, and that plan, he manifested it into game 2, and the Pelicans were then dominant over the Phoenix Suns, and there was just no match for Phoenix, and pretty much through the second half of the game. The first half was a little bit more teeter-totter, give and take, but then we had Devin Booker go down in the third quarter. He was out for most of the second half with a half-stream strain or injury to his right, on his right leg. We're still waiting to hear on an update. Monty Williams did not want to comment following the game last night, pending what would come of today, valuation and things like that, as they go ahead and see how he's feeling, and possibly that he may return for game 3, but also expecting to not have Devin Booker at least for a game, possibly 2 games. And it's not something that is new for the Phoenix Suns. They're used to playing without Booker. They're used to playing without Chris Paul. So what do you see here?
This one's so tough, Joanna. But hamstrings, I dealt with them during my playing career, and they're even more complicated than calves and different things like that. I'm hoping it's a day-to-day thing. Without Booker in the lineup, you've obviously said they played well without him. For me, it's just like, this is second season now. This is playoffs, and we saw what the Pelicans were able to do. They dominated the second half of that game, especially after Booker came out. They were more aggressive. They were on the boards a little more. Defensively, we didn't match their intensity, and this could be a problem for the Suns moving forward. They're an 8 seed, obviously. The Pelicans are here's the thing. You can't tell the Pelicans they're an 8 seed. They don't care about that. They're young. They're hungry. They have a coach that is showing, his worth just in his first playoff game. And, you talk about a team that only won 30-some-odd games during the regular season, so this shouldn't even be a matchup, right? Yet you're looking out there, and once again, like I said, you can't tell the Pelicans that they're not in this. So the Suns are in for a fight. Once again, now we have to go over there, and it's crazy to say we have to get at least one of those games over there so we can take back home court. It's not going to be easy. It'll be interesting to see once we get an evaluation of Booker, how long they think he might be out. And here's the other thing, Joanna, this moving forward, it's not just about this series. If you're going to move, we hope, we can get past the Pelicans, but what's waiting for us after this? Mavericks and Jazz, or you get past that series, then you're talking about Warriors or Memphis or Timberwolves, whoever it is. This and that hamstring, like I said, it's one thing to get through a series. You've got to win 16 games to win a title, and it's not going to be that easy without Devin Booker. And what I'm saying right now, fingers crossed on the evaluation. If we hear it's day to day and that's great news. If we hear it might be days to weeks or even like to me, that's danger zone as far as not just this series, but moving forward.
Yes, let's cross our fingers that everything comes out well for Devin Booker following that evaluation today, which we'll have an update on, and that he's not missing out too many games, because yes, you can't discount the New Orleans Pelicans. A lot of media and a lot of fans have not taken them into consideration. And what the New Orleans Pelicans, we can't forget Willie Green, what he's the product of. Monty Williams, Willie Green was an assistant coach for the Phoenix Suns, so he knows their game. Another thing, the Pelicans, with that also, it's like a younger or like an earlier Phoenix Suns team, that's up and coming. So they have a lot of similarities. And New Orleans, they, like you said, they're a good team. So they do not play like an 8 seed, and I knew that they were not going to be coming playing like an 8 seed, and that just like has that Monty Williams mentality. Willie Green is going to assimilate that to his players.
And I'll throw one last thing out here. What's really important when you're an 8 seed, Johanna, or even a 2, you want these first series to be over and done as fast as possible. You don't want a first round series going 6 and 7 games. It just complicates. You're just adding on to the number of I guess steps you have to take to get to those 16 wins. You want these first round series over as soon as possible, and I'm hoping that we can do that with the Pelicans. Hey, Joe, did I lose you?
Okay, sorry. I am back. I just had to address a little something here on my technical side. But yes, definitely, you brought up a lot of great points there, Ed. And speaking of the Phoenix Suns, I want to go ahead and bring up the Defensive Player of the Year, which was not Mikal Bridges. And that actually went to Marcus Smart from the Boston Celtics. So first I want to say that Mikal Bridges did come in second with 22 votes for first place against the 37 votes for Marcus Smart. So that was a bit surprising for me, given with Mikal Bridges and all his contributes for the Phoenix Suns and all that he's capable of. And come on, the guy is a beast. So not to discount Marcus Smart at all, because he's also a phenomenal player. But I think once again that the Phoenix Suns were robbed. What are your thoughts on this, Ed?
I'm right there with you. It's funny, Joanna, that for the last bunch of years, it's almost like in the NFL, MVP has got to be a quarterback. It's almost become a quarterback award. The same thing kind of goes for Defensive Player of the Year. The last bunch of years, it's almost like it has to be a big man because they protect the rim, and we've forgotten about the guards and the mid, the forwards and different things like that. But with Mikal, I thought it was, I won't say he was slighted to the nth degree, but I definitely thought he deserved this reward as well. I don't know what Marcus Smart, what set him aside or what the voters were looking at in general, but you put them side by side. I just think Mikal should have gotten this award as well. And then every year somebody's going to be griping about it. Bam Adebayo, he's got beef. Everybody's got beef. But I did think that this was an award that Mikal should have gotten as well.
Yeah, one thing that I'll go ahead and say on this, and the same thing I said about the MVP, and then I brought this up on the Courtside podcast. So for those who haven't listened, I would go ahead and listen in on that opinion and that take from last week. But I think just as the MVP should be, it should also be the Defensive Player of the Year, because I think that these awards are being looked at more as in statistics, analytics, more than anything else. Yeah. Because again, with what I mentioned with the MVP, and just bring that up here for a second, is you're bringing up an MVP and the qualifications to receive that award. It should be not only analytics, the stats and everything, but also the leadership on the court, off the court, the defending, like all these aspects, all well-rounded. Are they a well-rounded player and what is really to be considered an MVP? Same thing with the Defensive Player of the Year. Not only on the statistics, on points, etc., all those analytics aspects, but also and the defending aspect as well, and what you contribute to the team. He hasn't missed a game, Ed.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes in his career.
Yeah, I think and you brought I hate the word, Joanna, analytics has ruined all of our sports, if you ask me. Sometimes it's just be about the eye test. What are you seeing out there? And not every voter is going to see every play of, every game. But like I said, when you're doing this voting, I think instead of just looking, like you mentioned, shouldn't be just looking at statistics. The eye test should tell you more. And he was out there every game doing his thing, and that should count for something.
Definitely. So unfortunately, not Mikal Bridges, but in my eyes, he is my defensive player of the year, not only for the for the team, but for the NBA. But I want to go ahead and switch gears, Ed, to something that you are very familiar with. Is the NFL. We have the draft that's coming up here in just a little bit over a week and like 2 days or a day and a half, if you're really counting days. So what do you expect out of this draft? Because I know we have a lot of teams, there's a lot what is expected of teams and who should be going first, etc. But just overall expectation.
I expect, Joanna, for the NFL, for this draft, I think once again, teams are going to overreach for quarterbacks. That's always something that just happens. Everybody's all up in arms because, oh my God, they might not take a quarterback in the first 13 picks. If there's no quarterback that's worthy of a pick in the first 13 to 15 or whatever it is, so be it. It's like everybody goes crazy because, oh, there's not going to be a quarterback pick first or within the first three. Sometimes other positions are more valuable and teams need other things more than a quarterback. But I expect somebody to make a reach because we have to have a quarterback picked early. But at the same time, this is a draft that's going to be fruitful in the wide receiver category and with the, as they call them now, edge rushers. I think there's going to be an abundance of those guys that are going to be picked in the first round or two, and it's going to be exciting. Like I said, we'll see who jumps first at the quarterback, but other than that, there's going to be a lot of great quality athletes and other positions that are going to go. Obviously, we'll specifically talk about the Cardinals here soon, but I'm excited. What I am ready for, those two, Joes, I'm tired of the mock drafts and stuff like that. Let's just get to it. So we've been listening. Since the combine, as obviously we always have to have something to talk about with football. After the Super Bowl, they moved to the combine and who's declaring for the draft, and now we got to, for weeks, we have to evaluate that. This guy ran a 4 this, and this guy did this, and he did a vertical. Now we're finally mock draft 35, I think it is, and let's just finally get this over with. Once we get to the first round, the first pick, then we can put all this behind us. But it's going to be interesting to see once the dominoes start to fall, who goes where.
Yeah, I am excited for the draft. I really don't know what to expect. I think one of the things is that you mentioned, yes, is the quarterbacks, and then just seeing to where the teams really fulfill their needs. And talking about needs with the Arizona Cardinals. So what do the Cardinals need for to go after in this draft? Because we know do they go ahead and get a backup quarterback? Do they go ahead and get someone who's going to contribute to their special teams, which we know that's been impactful for the Arizona Cardinals, not only this season but past seasons? Do they go ahead and get someone who can help them on the defense? Like, what do the Arizona Cardinals, what do they need to go after? What should be their top priority?
Well, first off, I was very disappointed in their attack of the free agent market. For one, I think we pretty much just stood pat, re-signed our own players, made a couple small acquisitions. Will Hernandez, in the offensive line, a couple other spots. We did not do anything. You look around the league, and other teams were just wheeling and dealing. Picking up free agents, even making some trades. You got Devontae Adams going from the Green Bay to the Raiders. You had so many things happen, and all we did was re-sign, Ertz, which is, I think a smart move. We re-signed our backup quarterback. It just seemed like we just didn't do enough. And now the draft is in front of us, and you talk about a lot of things we need to, some holes we need to fill. First off, we let our defensive line, we let Chandler Jones just go. He's over in LA now, or Las Vegas with the Raiders. So, you're talking about a need. We need somebody to help J.J. Watt on the defensive line. We need cornerback help. We need wide receiver help. We have re-signed A.J. Green, but who's our number 2 behind Hopkins? Kirk goes off into the Suns. There's no way I'd have paid Kirk the money he got from the Jaguars. But once again, that's another need. And then offensive line. I keep preaching about this offensive line. If you continue to draft guys in the 4th and 5th round and don't go out. And, we did make a acquisition last year, bringing Hudson in to anchor for the center, but we still need so much help on that offensive line. So you ask needs, it's like we need a little bit of everything. And we got to pick, I think, 23 or somewhere in that area. What they decide to do is going to say a whole lot about, because after our second round pick, we've got holes all the way, because we gave away third and fourth round picks. I think we go from pick, like I have it on my sheet somewhere. I'll have to look it up, but we've got like 100 picks between our second and fifth or whatever it is. So unless we make some draft day moves to jump up, we're severely hurt in terms of how much we can go out and find. Like I said, as far as what we need a whole bunch. Whether they're smart enough to shop for need or best available, that's going to be a question as well. I think we went out and got best available with Zaven Collins when we could have gone for a need last year, that type of thing. We already had Simmons in that kind of mold. We go out and get another in Collins when we could have done something else. That's just my opinion. So we'll see what the Cardinals do. But like I said, I ran down the list of what we need. We need a whole bunch, and it'll be interesting to see if they can come away with, a great first and second round pick.
Yes, I hope that they are able to capitalize on the draft. And unfortunately, I'm disappointed. Like you mentioned, I think free agency would have been the stronger suit for them to go ahead and fulfill their needs. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case. They let go a lot of great players that you just mentioned that could have, re-signed. Chandler Jones is the big hit, I believe, for the Arizona Cardinals, and I don't know that they'll be able to go ahead and recuperate from that. And then from here is this, after all of these changes and what the Arizona Cardinals have done, and seeing the results of last season and the last couple of seasons, will they be able to contend? Will they go ahead and be able to go deep into the playoffs, given the entire situation and dynamics during the offseason with the whole Kyler Murray? We've had, AJ Green kind of make a little bit of a comment with regards to that relationship as well. We have JJ Watt, veteran. He needs help, like you mentioned. Hopkins needs, a second man in line. So where do we see the Cardinals here during not only the regular season, but do we even see them in the playoffs?
Well, I tell you what, the first thing we have to solve, Joanna, you mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned it, was our situation with Kyler Murray. I'm starting to even hear, which is it's crazy to even imagine, some of the talking heads are out there talking about, well, he might not even come back and he might force a trade. Could you imagine, after everything we've been through with getting him here in the first place, after drafting Josh Rosen the year before, you give Kingsbury a job when nobody thought he was even in contention for it. He's done a decent job, and then you go and extend him and Keim, and now you got a quarterback that doesn't want to be here, and you're forced to pay him. The other, it's almost just imaginable that we're even talking about this. And I know a lot of it stems from other teams doing some of the things they're doing, giving some big money to quarterbacks, and our young quarterback thinks he deserves to be paid right now. Not even into his fourth year yet, with a fifth-year option, and then, God heaven forbid, you always have those franchise tag options as well. But it's going to come down to, do the Cardinals acquiesce to him and give him that money? And then the other thing, Joanne, is if they decide to pay him, does that all of a sudden make everybody happy? Because money does not solve all the problems. There's going to be some players on this team that are not going to take kindly to kind of his approach to everything, his leadership and different things. I've been talking about his leadership from day one. Not the best look. And now this holdout kind of, his agent making all the statements and different things. And then a lot of things are going to come to light. Even you mentioned AJ Green saying how communication wasn't deep. What I found interesting was AJ Green was taking all the responsibility for it, saying, I have to do a better job. I have to communicate with him more. I have to do this. Not mentioning once that, hey, maybe I would like him to come to me as well. And maybe I need a little more leadership. Not me, but we need a little bit more leadership from him. So a lot of this stuff that we're seeing kind of lightly coming to the front, I think we're going to see a whole lot more. And the Cardinals have a whole lot on their plate in not just the draft coming up. They're going to have to take care of bringing new players in here, but they're also going to have to worry about what's going on with Murray and the locker room in general. And we'll see what type of leadership we have at the coaching level and from our quote unquote franchise quarterback moving forward.
Yeah, and you touched on a major point there. Money does make the world go round, however, it does not bring happiness. And I think that's one of the things that's really tarnished the organization, or at least, Kyler Murray in that aspect, and affecting the players. And in this touching on that leadership, I'm totally agreement with that. And I remember when I was on your show last month, and you brought that point up, and when this is when the whole Kyler Murray situation was, on the hot seat, and I made a comment, and I still stand by it when was you, and I recall this being that you mentioned trade, and with that leadership and what the team is needing, he's not what the Cardinals need from a quarterback, and I still stand by. I don't think that the Cardinals are going to go ahead and do this, but he needs to be traded.
Well, I say this: talent, and I think I even said this on the show, talent doesn't make you a leader. You can have all the talent in the world, and I think he does have all the talent in the world. But if you can do that on the field, if you're the field general though, and nobody will or wants to follow you, then and now you can't fake being a leader. It's not rah-rah. It's literally sometimes getting to know the troops on the team, getting have more of a personal relationship, and getting them to want to run through a brick wall for you. And thus far, he's shown that he's selfish. It's all about him. Even on the field, I look at his body language a lot of times, throwing up the hands and stuff like that, almost like trying to embarrass players out there. Like, what are you doing? It's never it's my fault, or I can do this better. And like I said, that's when I heard the quotes from AJ Green. Immediately, this is a veteran, a dude who's been around a long time, a Pro Bowler, has played with some great quarterbacks in his time, and he's sitting there like almost throwing himself under the bus instead of us getting just the slightest word from our young quarterback. Hey, maybe I need to do some things a little better, or I can improve. All we've seen from Kyler so far is, hey, I want my money because before I got here, you guys were crap. Now all of a sudden we're better, and I need to be paid. And it's like, wait a minute, we have a long way to go before we can put you in the category of, maybe some of the other quarterbacks that you're comparing yourself to financially. And like I said, it's going to be this is going to be hard to recover from, even if they do give him his money, because he's upsetting a lot of people behind the scenes. And it's not as easy as just, okay, now I got my money, everybody should be happy.
Yes, definitely. I think, with that there's a maturity, and, with just going back to the AJ Green comment, and he's not the only player who has spoken up in regards to communication and that leadership. I do recall reading that AJ Green did say within those comments that it's also a two-way street. The other thing that I also have noticed in this is, aside from Kyler Murray wanting his money and re-signing and et cetera, and getting, a payday, is that Kyler Murray hasn't spoken out in any of this. He's remained silent. So we've had other players come up and say something of the likes of AJ Green. He's not the only one, but being the fact that Kyler Murray hasn't said one thing addressing the situation, or whether that taking ownership or saying that that's something that he's going to work on to go ahead and improve that camaraderie within his teammates. There's nothing. It's crickets.
Yeah, and I mean that speaks volumes. And then the other thing, and I'll stop after this, beating up on Kyler Murray, is the fact that we have not seen a lot of support from within his locker room. Normally when these issues are being thrown out there, you'll get guys, whether it be through their social media or interviews that they do. Hey, Kyler is a great leader. He's this, I have not heard a bunch of support from within that locker room. That silence speaks volumes to me, Johanna.
Definitely. I'm in total agreement of that. So I know we can keep talking NFL, keep talking Arizona Cardinals, and keep beating up on this topic. But let's go ahead and move on into another one of your sports that you're also familiar with. We have baseball. Baseball has returned. We've seen some good and we've seen some bad, Ed. But I want to go ahead and stick with the good. I know last show we went into on the bad side. So let's go ahead and turn that around. And I want to go ahead and talk about the teams that are up at the top and have in a way one of the teams that have at least have surprised as well as they're doing now. I expected them to be doing pretty well, not mediocre, at least improve some this season, but they've exceeded my expectations thus far. And those are the New York Mets. They are 9-3, way above 500. And they're, of course, number one. They're above the Nationals. They're right now, how many games? 3.5 games ahead of the Nationals. So, how do you see this Mets team, Ed?
It's really interesting, Joanna. It's with the Mets and certain teams. It's almost like every year they go out and spend money. They spend money. They spend money, and we always think this could possibly be their year. But something always gets in the way of the Mets. They go spend the money, and on that new shiny car, and what happens? The first day they're out there, somebody rams into them, and injury stops everything. And then all that money they put into this shiny new car is for naught because it just, like it says, now sitting dinged up. And that seems what like always gets the Mets. And if you're a Mets fan, the only thing you can do with this good start, cross your fingers that nothing interferes with what they've put together. Because like I said, they were one of those teams, they have the money, they spent it, and this could very easily be a great year for them. We'll just have to watch. They're obviously within the division next to they're up. Atlanta was a surprise last year winning the World Series, but Atlanta didn't have a great what you call regular season record. They got hot at the right time. So the Mets are in prime position. I think a lot of people picked the Phillies to win that division, and some even had them at their dark horse to go to the World Series out of the NL. They're sitting at 4-8 right now. The thing I always remind people about baseball, these 9-3 starts, 4-8 starts, there's 100 and some odd, 150 games to still go. This is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So we'll see where everybody's standing after the end of 162. But it's also, like I said, it's encouraging they're out of the box like this. It's just like I said, you have to cross your fingers and hold your breath underwater because this is a long way from being over.
Yeah, it's no, definitely. And now you did touch on a major point there. Those teams that are doing great at the beginning of the season can then taper off and go into, having to rest second half of the season. That's not so great. You brought a good team, the Braves. So anything can happen as you go ahead and go deeper into the season. But one of the also teams that and then this is our PLR's favorite. And then he said this is his prediction that the Chicago White Sox, will be winning the World Series, going to the World Series this season. And I would have to give the Chicago White Sox credit. They've turned their team around because they've had some not great times. And the last season, and Tony La Russa and what those, I know he has a challenge there, but this is a team that can surprise this season, in my belief.
Yeah, and with the White Sox, obviously in that division, Detroit, Kansas City, I mean, those are usually your bottom end teams. So it gives, like in every division you have one or two teams that just don't have the payroll and the history to compete. I think a lot of people pick the Twins to be that team in that division this year, meaning maybe jump up to the top. They're currently sitting at 4-7, but once again, only 3 games behind the White Sox, who are sitting at 6-3. With some of these Midwest teams, I always look at this too, Joanna. Sometimes weather has a lot to do with some of these hot and cold starts. I'm playing baseball for a decade professionally in the Midwest. Sometimes it is so tough to get started. You're dealing with snow and cold and frosty temperatures even when you're out there on the field. This start, like I said, it could go one or two ways. And right now the White Sox look pretty good at 6-3. I know Paul is always, just like he's rooting for his sons, rooting for his Sun Devils. He's got these White Sox on his mind, and we'll see where they go. But like I said, good to see them on. That's actually one of my old organizations too. I was signed by the White Sox out of high school way back in 1987. So I'm always rooting for them. It's good to see them on top right now.
Yes, that's good. Yes, that's right. You are a White Sox veteran. I'm going to go ahead and bring it on west over here, not with the local Arizona Diamondbacks, unfortunately, but the Los Angeles Dodgers, but also the Colorado Rockies. Right now, they are tied and they have a 8-3 record as the season starts. What can we see out of the Dodgers? Because we've seen how Clayton Kershaw, how he started throwing pretty darn well and had a no-hitter perfect game going on, and then he was pulled, and even though he did agree with that decision, but he's also coming back and trying to not take a step back and re-injure himself. But then we also have the Colorado Rockies, who they've done the work with the organization and the players, and now they've been in contention and have improved. So how do you see this playing out, Ed?
Well, Joanne, with the money that the Dodgers have spent, they bring in Freddie Freeman. We all know their lineup is one of the best from top to bottom. Got a great manager over there as well. If they don't win this division, I would consider it a total failure for them because they, like I said, money-wise, they're head and shoulders. I think they've spent in the area of their 2022 payrolls in the area of $285 million. And just to give you a comparison, our Diamondbacks 2022 payroll is at 88 and some change, almost 89 million. So that's the gap in terms of money spending. On the flip side, Colorado somewhere toward the average. They spend about 137 million. The Giants and Padres are a little further toward the top of that list as well. For me, this is Dodgers championship or bust, and they do have the talent to back that up. For a team like the Rockies, I always worry about, especially because they play up there in that thin air, I always worry about their pitching holding up at home. That puts a lot of extra strain on their organization. I think the fact that they're up there in Colorado. So this nice start, 8-3, I've seen it before, and eventually it seems like they always come back to the pack. What I would keep my eye on is always the Giants. It seems like they always figure out a way to at least stay in contention. And with the money that the Padres spent, they should be in contention, barring an injury or two. I think they got a couple people out right now, but it doesn't say much. I know our home team is in the cellar right now, and sad to say, I think that's where they're going to stay for the remainder of this season, even this early on. You heard me say it's 162. It's not a sprint; it's a marathon. I've seen this race before, meaning last year, where we ended up winning 52 out of 162, and this could be more of the same for us. But those other teams, like I said, it's hard to compete when you're in a division with teams that are putting that kind of money out and have that kind of talent on their roster. But I definitely see the Dodgers as the one to beat in the NL West.
Yeah, unfortunately, I hate to agree with you. With the Dodgers being, the one that you have to defeat there, but they've just have all the pieces, and even though with all those changes that they have made, they've made it to improve the team as well. Although some of their players, have also, left who contributed to that World Series win. But I'm going to go ahead and just go back to the NFL real quick, Ed, and on an update, I want to go ahead and make sure to touch on this and follow up on it, is with the Washington Commanders. They are denying any financial misconduct, and this has been a story that has been, followed through since the initial allegations, and they are disputing these claims and saying that that it's actually by a former employee that these allegations are being made. And I think even on one of them I read that they're calling this employee as vindictive as well. So there's a lot. One of the things too is that they released a 22-page letter. So, and this was provided to the Federal Trade Commission. But there's a lot of affidavits and a lot of things that now they're just stepping back and saying, hey, we had nothing to do with this. We were not knowledgeable of it. So there's a lot of things being said here. So I really right now I'm trying to digest everything, and I don't know what to make of it. And what's your thought, opinion? What do you see that's going on here?
Well, a couple of things. One is we are all responsible for our actions as well as those who represent us. And in this situation, the commanders can step back and throw their hands up and say, hey, we did not know what was going on, and et cetera, et cetera. Regardless, if something was going on within that organization under their watch, they're going to be held responsible for it. The other thing, Johanna, is for us to sit here and think that this could not possibly be a practice within a whole bunch of other organizations, whatever the allegations and everything are, meaning let's use the term money laundering, right? I'm sure there are a bunch of owners and bookkeepers and et cetera, who are on high alert right now because millionaires and billionaires, they stay that for their knowledge of how to do different things, meaning put money here, put money there, tax-wise, different, there's a reason why rich stay rich. And within these organizations, I'm sure there's a bunch of owners who are shaking right now because I don't think Daniel Snyder and the Washington Commanders are the only ones that are potentially guilty of these allegations. We can only call them allegations because that's all they are right now. So I think this is something to watch, how dirty it could get, because we all know the old saying, if I'm going down, a whole bunch of you are going down with me. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, as well as, like I said, the accusations being thrown and the defense of the Commanders' top brass. Like I said, if something's going on within your organization, everybody's responsible from top to bottom. So it'll be interesting to see how this all falls out. But we could learn a whole lot about not just the Commanders, but some other organizations as well as this continues to get dirty.
Yes, and it's just unfortunate to see just the Washington Commanders just being under such a hot seat, and it's just one thing after another, legally that they just have to battle, and this is just another one of those battles, and it's just not over yet for them. So just seeing this organization being tarnished and yet another negative way is just so unfortunate to see.
Yeah, and some of it, we have to be honest, some of it is by their own doing as well. Some of it is stuff that's being stirred up, but I guarantee you, in the end, somebody's going to have to be held accountable. And I'm hoping when they get to the bottom of it and figure it all out, because I'd rather be talking about what's going on the field than what's going on with money and different things like that. We've got enough to be concerned about, and I hope they figure this all out in the end.
Yeah, and then we know how distracting that can be for a team. Instead of focusing on the field, focusing on your players and being effective and getting those positive results, it's all being taken away, and the light being shed on, on the front office, on allegations, on legality, and that's a way that you really don't want to have the way your season to be focused on, unfortunately.
Exactly.
But we'll continue to follow this story and see how it continues to unfold. But that actually brings our show to an end. I know that I wanted to touch on many other things. We can just talk on, what's happening right now. The NBA playoffs is, the hot topic, and of course, I have to touch on the NFL draft preview. So, which will actually, for everyone who tunes in and does listen, stay tuned for an NFL draft special that will be coming your way. So we'll go ahead and release that and give you more information on when that will be coming to you. Of course, we have to have some NFL coverage and go deep into that. But Ed, thank you so much again for joining me and being a part of Inside Sports Talk today. And before we go, can you let our awesome listeners know where they can go ahead and find you?
Oh, thank you first for having me on, Johanna, and you do an amazing job. Always a pleasure joining you. If people want to keep up with me, we have the Easy Sports Talk show on KDUS 1060 AM out here every Saturday from 10 to noon. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Ed Smith Speaks. And if you'd like to check me out, my website is edsmithspeaks.com. Go on there, check out what I do as far as radio, motivational speaking, and also check on the book tab if you want to get a copy of my book, Easy Does It, The Journey of a Lifetime. So once again, Joe, pleasure being on with you. Always a great time.
Thank you. Yes, everyone, go ahead and tune into his show every Saturday at 10 a.m. It's a 2-hour show. Great stuff, great content, and that book, awesome stuff as well. And just he sheds a lot of stories on his life too. So very, very impactful. And thank you, everyone, for listening in. You can check me out on both Instagram and Twitter at Johanna-Rosalye. That's JROSALYE. Make sure to follow Insight Sports Network on Instagram at Insight Sports Net and on Twitter at Insight Sports _ Make sure you go ahead and like us on Facebook and follow our YouTube channel as well. And can't forget to go ahead and visit our website. That is insightsport.net. Again, thank you everyone for tuning and listening in. This was Insight Sports Talk.